What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I am also the host of the only online show in the world for fathers and dads that's sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization, and I'm also the board chair of the Global Food and Drink Initiative. It's a multimedia not-for-profit that showcases Blacks in the diaspora that are doing their thing in food, drink, and travel. And as always, I like to say, you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And we are broadcasting live on October 15th on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and places I don't even know of yet. So let's say hello to the media star, Ryan Knight. Mr. Knight, you're on mute.
Still working on that title. Thank you. A work in progress, as we say. But for those that don't know me, my name is Ryan Knight, one of the co-founders of the Afro-Caribbean Business Network. We work with entrepreneurs of African and Caribbean heritage to figure out what stage they're in today and then help them create a blueprint to grow their companies. I always say grow their companies exponentially, not just so that we're surviving, but thriving. Also, I'm an entrepreneur myself. I run a company called Detail Ignites. So we provide mobile waterless car cleaning. We go to people's houses and clean their cars without using any water and our plant-based, eco-friendly cleaning supplies. I was talking, it feels like a month ago, the last time we were able to be on the Morning Vibe together live, but we were talking about the youth program that we're running. We have 2 students, and we recently just recruited one more. So Nathan is going to be joining the DK crew. So excited about that. And yeah, so the season is still in full swing, even though actually it's been quite warm the last week or so.
A warm October.
Yeah.
Above average temperature-wise in the Toronto area, big time.
Absolutely. So yeah, always
Good. What's been going on this week? Well, we haven't been on live since last Friday because this past Monday was Thanksgiving Day, and we ran a replay with Louis Marsh. If you didn't catch it, folks, it was a good one. You should catch it. So go to either our Facebook or YouTube pages. A great replay with Louis Marsh from Toronto talking about gun violence and sustainability in the Black environment.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, Thanksgiving happened, got to relax, fill my belly, get some leftovers. But also what's been happening is, so we've been talking about this ecosystem fund and the loan fund. I'm not sure if anybody saw, but RBC released their own version of the FACE loan. So I'm not going to go deep into that now because
we'll save that. We'll save that.
Today trumps that drama. But yeah, that was interesting to see this week. So if you're looking for money, RBC is also catering to the Black community as well.
Yeah, Black entrepreneurs. We'll certainly touch that sometime next week for sure. Because that's when Ryan shared me that news, I had an interesting response, and then when I shared that with others, they had an interesting response.
Same,
yes. So it's quite good. And anything else been going on?
No, other than that, I've been trying to set up next week to be like a slower week. So not back-to-back meetings and all the Russian bush. So we'll see how if
you're able to achieve that, right?
Yeah. We'll see how
Well, Ryan, you got to be intentional. You have to be intentional. You're not being intentional enough.
That's true. Hold on, let me take my notes. I always learn something new when I get
after you fit. I know you're one of these people you have to go back to back to back. Don't do that. I don't do that. I at least give myself at least 10 minutes between meetings because I want to give myself grace, rest, and then before I go into that next meeting, I can just block everything else in the past out and come in as fresh as possible so I can give my full energy to that conversation or conversations.
Yeah. And I find I can't even debrief from the previous one. You're like, you don't even get that time to just digest it. So,
well, I tell you, so saying good morning to the Make It Happen show. Alethea is saying great morning. There's a media star. If you want autographs, get it now. She'll start charging soon. She's starting to dominate the media. Be careful.
Agreed.
Yeah. So Won't get into it, but actually there's a new social app that's out there called Wisdom. And it was actually founded by a Black African woman who's based in London, England. I had a chance to do a quick conversation with her on the app this week. And we're also coordinating our schedules for her to come on live in the next 7 to 10 days. So I don't know which one of the platforms she's going to appear of mine, but keep it going. Good morning. Olivia Fung is on. Oh boy, all these people here at SOAR in the morning. Well, they're not. Pardon me?
Is Wisdom audio only, like Clubhouse?
So it's like Clubhouse, but it is different in a lot of ways. It just launched this past Tuesday, but I got an email to be an early adopter, and I've been on it doing testing for the last 2 months.
Very cool. Okay.
So it's quite interesting. It's different than Clubhouse. Won't get too deep because we have a superstar going to be coming on in just a moment. But the difference with Wisdom is you can only do one-on-one conversations. You can't have like 8 million people live at the same time. It's one-on-one conversations. And the nice thing too is that after you finish your conversation, it goes on your profile. You can save it. You can download it and repurpose it. A lot of interesting things, but we don't know what she may end up being on the morning vibe because there's a 5-hour time difference between here and England. So
yes, please invite.
we'll see what goes on. But let's get the superstar of the day. Well, I think his family thinks he's a superstar every day on today. So who do we have sharing with us today, Ryan? Talk to us. Talk to our family here.
Well, if you haven't been paying attention to Dufferin County, which is north of Toronto, I say northwest of Toronto and northeast of Brampton, where I am in Ontario. The deputy mayor of Shelburne, he has been, and I'll plug, he has been driven to succeed, and he wrote a whole book about it. So I've been reading through. I feel like it's a message that we have to get, not just to everybody, but especially our youth. And he talks about the journey from living in Jane and Finch, well, from downtown Toronto to Jane and Finch, and then up to Shelburne now, where he, like a councillor and deputy mayor. I had just met him when I was introduced. I don't remember who introduced us, but they're saying you have to meet this gentleman, Steve Anderson. He's doing great things up in Shelburne. So after we wrote the book, we were able to, touch base, get him on the show. So I'm happy to have him here to learn more about this.
Oh, sorry about that. Now he's here. Steve Anderson. What's going on this morning, Steve?
It's all good. Thanks for having me, guys. And what an introduction, Ryan. I appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure. That's like half of what's percolating in my brain.
Oh, man. I appreciate it.
He sent me his bio. I said, okay, do we have 15 minutes for the bio? So how's family and yourself this morning, Steve? How are things going?
Very good. I'm just blessed to be on the program. You guys are doing some fantastic stuff, but the family is good. All is good. And I'm excited to delve right into this conversation.
Excellent. Well, what we want to do, Steve, is to find out a little bit more about you. Obviously, we're going to talk about the book, but take us back. What was young Steve all about?
Young Steve was trying to find a way. You know what I mean? Ryan talked about the journey starting in Toronto to Jane and Finch. And so I think just like many other young people, just a lot of uncertainty, a lot of doubt, a lot of, can I carve out a place in this world for myself? And so a lot of that was going on. But as Ryan said, holding up the book there, I was driven to succeed. And so it wasn't an easy pathway to success, as I'm sure all of your viewers and you guys know. It's never easy, but thank God I was able to get there.
And a big piece that I keep seeing in the book is the different decision moments where a triggering moment happens, and then now you're finding yourself making decisions on how to move forward. And one piece that really resonated with me is when you're in high school and I think you had switched to West Collegiate or Westview, from Westview to
C.W. Jeffries.
Yes. And you actually were laying out a lot of different options for yourself and then landed on law. But I want you to talk more about why you felt it was important to do that deep dive, and then how you landed on pursuing law.
Yeah, I did the deep dive. Dr. Vibe talked about being intentional before we got onto the air. And so I was very intentional in describing that episode because I wanted it to resonate with folks who, at a certain point in their life, they're going back and forth as to what they want to be, right? And that's okay. And I wanted to let people know that it's okay to have different thoughts as to what you think that you could amount to be in this world. So whether it was a bus driver, as you know in the book, or a real estate agent, I was all over the place, all over the map.
Doctor was there. It was like,
you know what I mean? Like it was all there. And but it took a grade 11 teacher. It was my law course at that point in time, and law it was on the list, but it wasn't something that I thought was achievable or even something I was really serious about. But when I took the course and I was doing well, my teacher pulled me aside and said, "Steve, you know what? I think you would be an excellent lawyer." And it really just took off from there. It really demonstrates the power of influence. Sometimes teachers do get a negative rap, but this particular teacher in the Jane and Finch community really turned my life around.
And that's where typically that rock comes from your parents. And I know your mother's been there, but then there was a divorce that happened that really rocked your world, and you go deep into it in the book. How did that affect like you being able to make decisions and having a mentor leave the home like that?
Wow. Man, I think a lot of children who unfortunately have to experience that, it put me in a difficult situation. For many Black families, it's not oftentimes we say, okay, listen, you know what, let's go sit down and have a conversation and discuss our feelings. Or, maybe we should get a therapist in the house and we're going to have sessions together.
Yes.
But that doesn't happen. You're figuring out things on your own. And so at a young age, growing up in that community, I had to do a lot of figuring out on my own. And it didn't work very well at the very beginning, as you know, reading the story. It was a lot of bad decisions, falling into the wrong crowd. And it was just the space that I was in. I felt like maybe that's where I deserved to be. And maybe the people there understood me. And so they had their own grievances and I had mine, and it was just a natural marriage, I guess, at the time.
Steve, want to ask you a question. During those times, who was your support system? Or did you have a support system?
Yeah, this is what's interesting. And I think parents and supporters are out there. This is important. You can have a good family unit and good supporters, and still as an individual end up in a wrong situation. And it has nothing to do with the fact that there weren't people at home that really cared about you. It's just sometimes what you're going through that ends you going down a bad path. So the support system was always present at home, despite what was going on there, but I just felt different and I couldn't express myself. And so it just, at least to them, because they were going through their own stuff, and I just ended up making bad decisions. So outside of them, of course, as you know, reading the book, after I got suspended at WestU, and I was at home for 3 days, I had enough time to think about, what trajectory my life was going in.
After you came out of the closet. And
after I came out of the closet. You know how Caribbean parents could...
I used to take a long walk.
Okay, folks. Yeah. Okay, folks. We got to break that story down because people think come out of the closet. We want the real definition of Jamaica come out of the closet.
Yeah. So yes. So when I got the news that I was going home for 3 days, and it wasn't a vacation, I outlined in the book that once I knew that the school was going to contact my mom, when I got home, my first thought was to go hide in the closet to avoid any disciplinary actions that may have been coming my way. And so it was interesting because here I am walking around as some bad boy, so to speak, right? Not caring and hanging with the wrong crowd. And as soon as I knew that she got the message, all of that disappeared. And I was trying to avoid that Caribbean discipline. So that's what I mean by in the closet. That's what Ryan means. But thankfully, that predictable or sometimes foreseeable discipline didn't come my way.
I want to ask, when was, and you may have said it already with that teacher, but when did things begin to turn for you? Was it the time that teacher spoke to you, or were there a few other events where you said, okay, I'm going to make a turn?
Yeah. So the turn happened after the suspension. And because it was really then I was introduced to a new crop of friends that were, I mentioned my best friend, Ian Daly, Andrew, some others that I mentioned, Andrew Guy, who's a motivational speaker now. Ian Daly is a lawyer now. Reese Innes, who's a doctor for the Canadian Armed Forces. These were guys that I met shortly after I came back from the suspension. Some of them in Westview, some of them had moved recently into my building, and some I met actually at a church that I was attending in the area. And it was after being surrounded by those guys and having time to think when I was at home for 3 days, that really helped to change the trajectory, because these guys weren't fooling around. They were ambitious, they were serious, they held each other accountable. And so the way I was moving, I had to move different when I was with those guys. And I thank them largely for the change in trajectory that I was going in.
Just out of curiosity, are you still in touch with any of them?
Absolutely. I'm in touch with all of them, actually.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Ryan, go ahead.
I was going to talk about like choosing your friends. And I think one chapter is called around, if based on who you're with, I can tell you who you are. Mm-hmm. And I remember my father, certain friends I had when I was younger, he almost immediately, because like, no, don't hang around with that person. Like, it's not a good influence. And so losing a person in your household that could point out the friends that you're with to like steer you away from them, you really had to go through that trial and error on your own. So what advice would you give to other young kids that are now trying to figure out who to hang out with, and how did those influences really make a difference in your life for good and for bad?
Yeah. I say in that chapter that choosing your friends is not as highly rated as, maybe it should be. We talk about choosing the right spouse, choosing the right job, choosing the right place to live. But at a very early age, choosing the right friends that you're going to spend most likely the majority of your time with is really important, because their influence could either take you to a very good place, to your point, Ryan, or to a very bad place. What I would say to young people is, first of all, you got to know yourself and know what you want. And when you do that, then you will then surround yourself with individuals that are going to help you to get there, that are going to encourage you. And it's a two-way street, because it's not just them encouraging you. Obviously, you will be encouraging them. So I would say, know yourself, know what you want, and then choose wisely.
Love that. And that's where it's so important, being able to choose, and making decisions, I find, is something that you don't really go to school to learn how to make decisions. You kind of go to school to learn what's in the textbook and then regurgitate it on a test. So what helped you start making better decisions? Because I feel like that's a muscle that we definitely have to strengthen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you see, when you're steering down a pathway of marginalization, lack of success, maybe a criminal record, maybe ending up in jail, right, if that doesn't steer you to go into the other direction, I don't know what will. So getting close to being exposed to that to some degree certainly had me thinking that this was not where I should be. I started to think about, how disappointing or disappointed my mom and my family would be if this is the path that I took. So that was on my mind as well. And so, yeah, it was not wanting to disappoint them, not wanting to disappoint myself, and then certainly with the new crop of friends that I was with, not wanting to disappoint them as well.
And I'm so curious to see if, at the beginning of the book, you talked about, in your family, you are the only person with like a Canadian name. So now, do you still, I don't say like struggle with that, oh, you're such a Canadianized Jamaican, or have you kind of embraced that you're more Canadianized than your siblings?
I embrace that I am who I am, and that in my uniqueness, I'm prideful. And I think at the end of the day, that was the message that I wanted people to get away from, or take away rather, from reading that chapter. Oftentimes, I think we try to be like everybody else, or be the person who fits into the cool group, and we lose our identity trying to be like everybody else. Right. And I was no different, right? But after going through that experience and finding that it's okay to be different from the group, I don't have to try to be like them or speak like them, or have to enjoy the same foods that they enjoy. I could eat my pizza and my poutine and not opt for curry chicken and be okay with that. And so I celebrate my uniqueness, in the message to people who are reading, and particularly our young, is be comfortable and confident in who you are, and celebrate your own uniqueness.
And real quick, so which do you prefer, curry goat or oxtail?
I'm an oxtail guy all the way. Oh man! with rice and peas, because I don't think you have oxtail with white rice. I think that's an abomination. So it has to be
worse than socks and sandals.
Let me ask Steve, where would Steve be without his mother?
Oh man, I don't even want to think about that. I don't know, because it really all started there. Seeing the sacrifice, the hard work. I talk about, oftentimes we tend to look outside of the home for role models, for that positive influence. I just had to look towards my mom's bedroom and just see her and what she was doing, what she was all about. No excuses, even when there was a separation, never a complaint, never blamed anybody, just packed her stuff and went to work and came back. And so when I talked about earlier about not wanting to disappoint, even though I was going through what I was going to, I always had that in my mind. She's everything, not only to me, certainly to the family. And, this is the reason why I speak about her prominently in the book. And one of the last chapters is actually dedicated to her and the lessons learned. And so, I don't know where I would be, but thank God she was there and is there. And it's just been positive all the way through.
And I was curious because in the book you talked about when she came to Canada first from Jamaica, and she was advocating to get you guys there. And it only took a year. And we know others that have come up and it took a lot longer. And you even use that as some of your inspiration to go into law, the way that she handled herself against the Canadian courts. So now, have you ever talked with your siblings about what they felt with her leaving, because they were in Jamaica and then she went to Canada? And I've heard that that's been not like a rift or a struggle with families, but it's something that people talk about as being traumatic. Have you ever talked with your siblings about how they felt around it?
That's a great question. The answer is no. But it's a shame that it is a no, because I think these kinds of conversations should happen. So I don't know, to be honest with you, how they felt. I think I'd like to believe that there was an understanding that this was for the right reasons and for a better opportunity here in Canada. Right. But even with that in mind, I can only imagine that it's still extremely difficult when somebody who's the primary caregiver leaves, or an instrumental caregiver leaves for a period of time. So for them, I can only imagine it was probably traumatic.
Okay, Steve has froze on us. Hopefully he'll be back with us in just a second. But yeah, just as we're waiting for Steve to come back, great comments coming from everybody here. Lots. There's sounds like there's a Steve Anderson fan club out there. So what we're going to do, folks, is we're going to take a little bit of a break and just on the back end here, just make sure everything's okay with Steve. You're watching The Morning Vibe with Ryan and myself, and we're crossing our fingers that we're going to have Steve back after our break. And again, you're watching us live, and we'll be back in just a moment. Just give me a second, folks, and we'll just see if we can get Steve back on the back end. Yeah, he'll be back. All right. We'll be back in just a second. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, and it is Black Canada Talking time. Black Canada Talking is a live online event that provides Black Canadians the opportunity to give their takes on stories, POVs that are of importance to them, or we showcase Black Canadians are doing their thing.
The real aspect of what goes on behind the walls or behind the fence is a totally different persona and a totally different picture.
There was just a big sense of relief when we finally got there.
We have to realize that everything we do is going to have an impact on probably a lot of people we don't even know.
One of the mandates of the CBC is to reflect Canada back to itself.
Not a lot of sustainable long-term movement that will effect economic change.
God bless, peace well, keep the faith, and walk good. Okay, we are back. We don't have Steve back yet, but we've had a read.
Yeah, I got a note from him that his power went out in the area.
Oh no!
So he's gonna try and come back on the on his phone. I think.
No, that's
too crazy.
Oh my goodness! You know what? Well, we can't do anything about that. But let's just talk about some of that conversation. Ryan, you're deep into that book.
I couldn't put it down. I'm about halfway through. I've been reading like the last couple of days, and a lot of parallels. And I wouldn't say like direct parallels, like comparisons, but with my journey living like in Shoreham, born St. Joseph Hospital downtown, and then living in Shoreham, and then moving to Keelan Wilson, and then moving to Brampton, and then having those same decisions having to be made while dealing with friends. And that's where I was talking about my father pointing to friends that I had to say, like, listen, that is going to be a bad influence. And then 30 years later, realizing how right he was, that, yeah, it really resonates with me. But then also thinking of what it would have been like without my father in the home is another dynamic that's really interesting to think of.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really deep into this book and go, wow, the man shows a book. And even before the artist or even when the writer shows a book, you're showing the book and you're like right into it. But
yes,
a lot of great stories there. And it's unfortunate. I guess we're going to have him back.
Hold on, I'm going to send him the link.
So has his power come back up?
Not yet. Let me see.
Okay, no, it's no problem. Like we can certainly have him back on. For people that just saw the ad there, Sunday coming up, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Black Canada Talking, which I host, and we're going to have Sharon Stewart, his lady that does ladies and women and girls empowerment.
Okay.
Which is really had the blessing to know her for a little bit of time. So we're finally going to get her on the Dr. Vibe show. Black Canada Talking. Also upcoming. Looks like Steve is coming back. I think. Yay! He is
improvise.
Man, nothing can keep a black Jane and Finch man down. Or Keelan Finch.
Never.
Well, thank you. We've been Ryan told us that the power went off, so you found an alternative. So this is good. Can you hear us okay?
Yes. Yep, perfect.
Okay, good. So while we were on break, we're just chatting about some things, and we want to get into this part of the conversation about we'll get to the book, but also there's a question here from one of your fans. Alethea says, question for the deputy mayor. What lessons from that MVP embarrassment has he taken into his leadership or life today? So talk about that. Let's hear about this MVP embarrassment.
She had to pick that part out, right?
Of course.
The MVP embarrassment. Well, I mean, this is in the chapter learning to be a leader. And here I was, one of the stars on the basketball team at CW Jeffries. And I thought leadership was all about, scoring the most points, ensuring that our team, would win the game. And I learned a very hard lesson that leadership encompasses much more than edifying and uplifting yourself, right? It's about making other people better around you. And so I talked about how my brother Clive was a guy that I wanted to impress the most, and I invited him to come down to the game to watch, and I put on a show for him. And then what happened, the coach called the timeout. We were winning. I think I was leading the team in scoring. And I went to the side, ignoring the coach dribbling a basketball. Didn't think anything of it. Why do I have to join? I already know what's going on, and I'm doing well on the court. Anyways, the timeout finishes. We get back on the court, and we win the game. And then after the game, I'm with my brother Clive. And he says nothing to me on the car ride home, not a single word. It was the day after speaking to my mom that she had told me, Clive talked about the game. So I'm like, well, what did he say? And he made the comment that he was so embarrassed that I came there, that he came and had to see me
not act in a way that he thought demonstrated the leadership that he had hoped for and anticipated. So that was one thing. So even with that, I was still kind of like, man, this guy's just hating on me, man. He doesn't understand it, right? Like I was doing my thing, like maybe he's just jealous, right? And so it came to the end of the year where the team was giving out the MVP. And so despite that incident and my brother's reaction to it, I'm thinking like, I'm a lot for this, right? Like I know what I did during the course of the year, even though we didn't win the championship and we didn't do well in the playoffs, but this award is mine. And so we're in the gymnasium. It's full of students. You know how it is, awards assembly. And I'm like sitting near the front of the stage and I'm thinking like, okay, I'm just waiting for the coach to wrap up his speech. And then he's just going to call my name. So as soon as he starts to wrap up, I start to, ease out of my seat and I start to walk down like to the stage. And all I hear is Freddie Carew. Freddie Carew. I'm like, Fred, we mean Freddie Carew. So the embarrassing moment was not only what I did in front of my brother, but what I did in front of the entire gymnasium when everybody saw me excuse myself to walk down to the front only to hear somebody else's name be called. And so it was a very hard lesson about leadership and that the team, as much as we were boys, they were looking at somebody else on the team that they felt demonstrated and felt that fit the total definition of leadership. And so from that point on, I understood that it's not just about your own personal success. It's about ensuring that other people around you are successful as well.
And am I on mute? Yeah, and touching on that about leadership now, and to fast forward, you've decided to be a leader in Shelburne. And so what made you decide to become a counselor for one? And then now I'm curious, like, what does a deputy mayor do? So I don't know if you want to tackle both in that answer.
Well, I mean, when I was at the Toronto Transit Commission, I had a taste of really being involved in the community. I did a lot of work back in the Jane Finch community when I became a lawyer at the TTC. So I used that platform to really go back and inspire kids. And then I was afforded an opportunity after a shooting in the area to work with a local politician and to curb gun violence and to find other alternatives for youth so that they wouldn't fall into those cracks. And at that moment in time, I really got a sense of what the political platform could really do to really impact a larger group of people. So that was a taste there. And then when I moved from where I was living at the time, Milton, to Shelburne, the thought process, to be honest with you, was at that time was not only did I see the benefits of working in that space, but I was also tired of being disappointed that other politicians weren't taking the issues of our community seriously. Right. And that I felt that if I wanted the change that I was seeking, then I had to step up and take action myself instead of depending on other people to do what I believe is right by me and by our community. And so hence, even with no experience, I decided that it's time to put up or shut up. And when the opportunity came, I went for it.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Now that's really, really good. Want to ask you about the book, because I guess that's one of the reasons why we're here.
You mean this thing right here?
Yeah, that thing, the book. The book. Question for you. When did you decide it was time to write a book?
Wow. Well, I mean, this is something that I had toyed around because people had mentioned it to me before. Hey, Steve, you should write a book. When I go to schools, I do a lot of talks in schools, churches, you name it, and talking about my story to try to inspire people. So that was toyed around with previously. And there's my website there. Thank you. Some of my pictures when I was younger. Ryan, you had to do this to me, but so I always toyed with it, but it only came, the decision to actually write it actually came as a result of the pandemic. I think it's fair to say for many of us that the pandemic really changed the way we were doing things and in a large degree slowed many of us down because we were restricted, right? And so I was actually at my mom's place in Brampton in a room, and I was sitting on the bed and the thought came to me like, Steve, like, if you're going to write the book, the time is now. And like magically, I looked over in the dresser and there was a pen and pad there. And I took it up and I just started writing, and it just continued from there. So I started this at the beginning of the pandemic. and just recently finished it.
Excellent.
Was it a challenge? Was there any challenging moments writing the book? And did you ever feel like quitting?
Quitting, no. Challenging, yes. This is it's still surreal, to be honest with you. I'm still digesting the fact that I actually have a book out there, but the challenging part is to go back and revisit things that you've buried. Right. When we move forward in our lives, we're always thinking about what's in front of us now and what's ahead. It's very rare that we look backwards and say, "Oh man, let me think about the time when I was in grade 7. Let me think about when my parents separated when I was 12 or something like that, and see how that has impacted me today." We tend to put that aside, forget about it for maybe good reasons or bad reasons, and we move on. This journey allowed me to go back and revisit that and be even uncomfortable in revisiting that and helping me to understand maybe the person I am today and how those things impacted me. And so, yeah, it was challenging for sure, recalling many of these incidents, being placed in ESL and the experience of being placed in ESL and how I felt there. So when we talk about embarrassing moments, that certainly felt like it was an embarrassing moment at that point in time. So to go relive stuff like that is difficult, but I felt it was necessary to articulate those experiences and those feelings for those who may experience similar things, for them to know that you're not alone and you're still.
Excellent. When you finish the book, let me ask this question. When you finish a book, what was that feeling like?
Man, and I'm still feeling it right now. Like, I can't believe that I did this. It's hard to articulate this. I'm just thinking, like, you asked me the challenging part about writing this, and I talked about the reflection, and it's happening in real time right now. I'm just thinking to myself, in Jane and Finch, growing up in Jane and Finch, and all the things that I talked about, and all the things that I encountered, to think that I would ever have this published, where people are buying it and talking about it, would have been a fantasy. It's not like when growing up in Jane and Finch, I saw Black authors and I knew individuals that were in my circle or just outside of my circle that was doing anything like this. And so to think back about living at Jane and Eddystone, living in a community that has been written off, I use the survivor analogy, voted off the island, lowered expectations, the coverage that you tend to get is drugs and gangs and prostitution. And to think that I'd be able to emerge out of that and have something like this in my hands today is really surreal. But the feeling is one of the story I believe needs to be shared and to be read and to be understood by others who may be walking a similar path, to have them know that as I say, it's not where and how you start, it's how you decide to finish. And that you could start off in difficult situations. It doesn't mean you have to stay in difficult situations. And that again, no matter where you come from, success is still possible for you.
How did it feel holding the first finished copy of the book in your hands?
Yeah, it was delivered to me. And when I opened it, I had to take a moment for myself it's one thing when I was writing it. The next thing let me share this with you. I was online on LinkedIn and I saw Ryan with his book. I even saw an interview with him and his daughter talking about the book and the journey about the book. And I thought to myself, man, when I watched him, I believe he did an unboxing of the book. And I thought to myself, man, I could only imagine what he's feeling after going through that journey and now actually having that physical book. And I knew I was writing mine at the time and it wasn't done. And so I was just looking forward to experiencing what I saw and the joy that he had finally getting that product in his hand after the journey that he and his daughter went through. And so to finally get it and to have that feeling, Ryan, I know how you felt. I'm sure I know how your daughter felt now. Having that book in your hands, it's just a remarkable feeling and experience that you go through. So I had to take a moment by myself where nobody was around me, and I just sat there just staring at it. In almost disbelief, but yeah, just staring at it and overwhelmed with emotion.
One other question, because I know Ryan's chomping at the bit. Steve, who was the first person you gave a finished copy of the book to, and why?
I gave it to my mom because I wanted her. She was a big part of the story. She is the story. I'm just the front-facing part of the story, but she is the story as far as I'm concerned. And I wanted her to feel how a sense of pride and to be proud, and to know that the sacrifices that she made was not in vain. And so it was with great privilege and honor for me to say, "Hey, Mom, take a look at this," and then take her to the chapter where her picture is at, and the chapter that focused on her and the lessons learned. That's an experience and a moment I'll never forget.
Well, you're having me continue on. I'm going to put a call to action to you specifically. If you're comfortable with it, I would love to see a picture of you and your mother holding that book.
Sure. My mom's here. I don't know if she.
No,
she
it's
feels,
okay. I'll put on the spot like that. It's all right. But I'd like.
Yeah,
I think that'd be very meaningful. I'm sure to all of us, but I think more importantly to you and her, because I believe very strongly about documenting your journey. You've done it written wise, but also picture wise. I think that'd be a special moment that will live on past her life and your life, and go into your children's lives as they go forward also.
You know what, just before Ryan kicks in there, Dr. Vibe, what you said there is so key. That was another big part of writing this. It was maintaining the legacy. That even when, God forbid, she and myself, my children will have this and be able to feel that sense of pride as well. So yes, that was a major part of it as well.
All right, Ryan, I'm stepping down now. I know you've been at the bit. Go ahead.
I'm trying to fight back. I feel like because my daughter, ever since she was born, it unlocked the emotional side of me. So bear with me if my eyes are watering, but I feel like you're such an inspiration to those that have had similar journeys. And as I was telling Dr. Vibe when we had the power outage, that I see the parallels in my own life, where we moved from areas of Toronto and then ended up in Brampton. And then you get to the point where you can really decide what you want to do different or what you want to do next. And you can decide to have massive impact. I mean, being a counselor and being deputy mayor, there's only one. Shelburne only picks one of those positions. And then when you realize you're in it, you're like, I am the person to be here. And that a lot of our youth don't realize that they have that potential to be in positions where it's them. They are the person deemed to be in that role at that time. And that's where I draw a lot of inspiration from what you're doing. And I just want to say thank you for making the decision to want to be in that role and be a beacon for anybody else that sees parallels in the story. And I was thinking about the permanence of the book. And I remember when I was looking at it, and I interviewed Asajafo, who was our publisher. And when I was talking to him, and he was talking about a lot of our Black community don't write and we don't archive our history. And that written word is so important to have that permanence, like you're saying, to leave past your existence and with your family and with your children. And that's what I feel like is so important with you documenting this and being able to now have it exist. This can spread worldwide, and it's something that it wouldn't have happened if you didn't make that decision to really write it. So I feel like I'm just saying thank you for being present and allowing us to really talk with you. And I'll stop rambling.
Steve, you got Ryan all choked up. He's drying his eyes. Him dry him eye.
Well, that's the hope that I have that people will experience. At the end of the day, it's about part of the challenge was being completely authentic as much as I could during the book, so that people could have the experience and the reflection that we see Ryan having now. And it's, to see that lets me know that what I did was the right thing. I could have just talked about success and, at a very high level, and I don't think it would have resonated with people the way that it currently has based on the feedback that I received thus far. So this is the reason why I'm doing it. This is, I'm not depending on this to make a living. The goal was really to preserve and to honor my mom and her legacy, my own legacy, and have something for my children, and certainly to inspire the community. And so I'm just glad it's out there, and I'm glad that it's having the impact that it is.
Well, I know our time is running a little bit short, but we do have another question. It's not an MVP question, by the way. We've got a question here. What from one of our, I guess, our most loyal fan, if you want to call it, supporter out there, Christopher Lawrence, ask you, what is one thing a youth needs to maintain in thought to know that they can be a success in life?
You just got to believe in yourself. It all starts there. If you believe in yourself and your capabilities, that is going to allow you to be able to push forward through the difficulties that are inevitable. I talk about that obstacles and difficulties are inevitable. It's how we respond to them that determines our future and our legacy. And so if you believe that, hey, listen, I am competent enough, I am relevant enough, and I want it bad enough, then you could achieve it. And so that's what I would say to our youth. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't. Don't look at your situation where you're living, your family dynamics, and think that somehow you're going to be shortchanged in this life. You don't have to be if you don't want to be, but that decision starts with you.
Like that. I am enough.
But to piggyback that question, I always wonder, because there's parts in the book where you're like drifting. You're with your friends, aimlessly walking through Jane and Finch Mall, aimlessly just walking around town. And so, what would you say to youth that might be drifting right now? Or because I would just say, like, get them the book. Just like, here's the book, but they're not going to read the whole book. Sorry, go ahead, Dr. Van.
Yeah, Steve. No, and just to piggyback on what you're saying, Ryan, Christopher has another question I think that can piggyback on what you've just shared, saying being in a state of success, what are 3 things you feel needs to be upheld, not to go backwards in life, rather than full steam ahead?
3 things that you need to not to go backwards. A, never forgetting where you come from, and making sure that you are being an inspiration to those who are seeking to travel the same path that you are. That's number 1. Number 2 is when you do achieve a certain level of success, however you define that, and whatever your target goal is, make sure that you stay true to yourself and don't sell yourself out. To be able to achieve that level of success. You want to be and remain authentic in who you are, right? And number 3 is use your platform. And actually, number 3, I'll change that. Continue to strive, never settle, and continue to strive to improve yourself. And if you do that, then there's no time and no room to go backwards.
I like the never settle. I would for Christopher, I'd add one more thing, especially to melanated people all around the world. The greatest form of wealth, or the greatest wealth that you have, are your relationships.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Ryan, to your question about floating around, what would I tell youth that may be in that situation? Hold on, man. Hold on is what I would say to those youths. And I mean that in all seriousness. Hold on, because better is around the corner. But better around the corner just doesn't fall into your lap. Better around the corner is, and I'll take Dr. Vibe's word earlier, you have to be intentional about it. At some point, you have to make a decision that it's time for me to go in another direction. And so I would say to youth that are out there that find themselves in that space, hold on and ultimately get to a place where you're making that decision that you deserve better.
And I'm curious, do you feel like there was anything somebody could have said to you when you were drifting that would have shortened that time frame so you didn't have to kind of go through all the rough, or do you feel like you had to kind of go through that journey to then realize to make the right decisions?
Yeah, and I would say it was the latter. We've all been in situations, even now as adults, where we're not in a space where we're ready to receive the advice, no matter how good it is. We're just not ready for it. It could be 100% true, and meant for our benefit, but we're just not there mentally. And I talk about it in the book that there were some friends that I got to know when I initially moved into Eddystone that tried to reach out to me. I sort of characterized as giving me the life raft to try to pull me back to the guy that I was. But I just wasn't ready to receive it at that point in time, because my mind was just in a different space. And so, yes, to your point, I had to go through it. And so when we see people who, despite, we sit here and we say, come on, man, Ryan and Dr. Vibe, why aren't you getting it? That person should get it. I mean, why don't they understand? It's so obvious. What I would say to people is we have to learn to be patient with people as they're going through their things, because I may have taken a week, somebody else may need to take a month or a year, but we have to be patient with those individuals and not give up too easy, and allow people space to come to the realization that, it is time for them to move on, because it's not because of me that they're moving in the right direction. It's because they themselves have decided that it's time to move in the right direction.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, you know what, folks? Well, go on, Ron. Go on, Ron. You're on fire today. You're drying your eyes and you're on fire. Keep on going.
But I say to myself about my children that they at minimum have till they're 27, because I know I was a mess until I hit about 27, and then I started finally figuring it out. So that patience and that persistence, and I attribute my parents and my mother especially that unconditional love, where even though they're not listening and not taking your advice, they're still there. And for us not to give up on our youth, the generation that's coming behind us, to say, let's be patient, let them have their own trials and tribulations. And then when they're ready to make that next decision and move forward, we're there. Like that teacher that was able to be there to pull you aside and say, you're showing some potential here. We have to be there to be able to recognize those things about our youth, so that when they show that glimmer of potential, we can catch it and make sure they don't ignore it. So I really appreciate that patience statement. And yeah, I think that is so important.
And I'll say this to parents that may have children that are a certain age, and they're trying to make headway and things are not panning out the way that they hope. And I'll say to parents, I know what you're going through. We're talking a lot about my journey and my success and where I'm at right now. I have one daughter and one son, and he himself, I'm not going to go into in depth, but he has some challenges himself that you would think, geez, with a father like Steve around, everything would be just clicking on all cylinders. Right. And so I say to parents out there that, again, as you said, Ryan, to be patient and to work with your son or your daughter and give them that space, because we ourselves, we were young once, and we ourselves needed space when our parents were trying to tell us stuff. And so not to get too frustrated and think that somehow, because they may not be listening now, that it's never going to turn around, because it turned around for us. And so if we are patient and we continue to show love, it'll turn around for them too. And so it's even a reminder to myself, even as I sit here with you guys discussing my story and my successes, it's a reminder to myself that I too have to be patient with him and my daughter as well, to make sure that I'm giving them their space to make mistakes, but also holding them accountable, right? Yeah. It's not just make your mistakes and I don't care. I'm giving you space, but you still have to be held accountable, because there are consequences to our actions.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, As you see, folks, we could go on for hours here, but I know everyone has some things to do. You are watching, and all three of us here, we have things to do. But Steve, want to say thank you for what you have done, what you are doing, and what you will be doing, not only for yourself, your family, your community, and the world, because now you're a published author. And do you have any final words for us and our viewers?
Get a copy of the book and be inspired is what I would say. You're never too young and you're never too old to be inspired. And lastly, I just want to thank the both of you for the great work that you guys are doing, allowing individuals like myself to share this space and to have this platform to be able to share my story. So I just commend the both of you for the excellent work that you guys are doing for our community.
Well, received.
Our pleasure.
Absolutely received. And for those who are watching live on the replay, there is the website, Driven to Succeed. The website address is driventosucceed.ca. You can find out more about the book, but more importantly, you can buy the book from the website. So we really, really appreciate the time. And I've got to get up to Shelburne one day because obviously lots has happened out there and I don't like missing out.
Right.
Hey, listen, I tell good folks like you that when you come, let me know and I'll make sure I roll up the red carpet.
No, that's for Ryan. I'll roll the carpet. Ryan will walk on the carpet.
Whatever.
Right.
Hey, I heard you guys are working on a hub out there. I think the husband-wife duo that does the dance classes. I saw them on Alethea's show. It looks like they're doing some. I want to get my daughter up there just to take some of those classes.
Listen, man, I tell folks all the time, Shelburne is the Wakanda of the North. So if you want to see
all right.
Black families and businesses that are thriving in Shelburne, you certainly need to come down and see what it's about for sure.
Love
all
that.
right. Well, Steve, have an outstanding day. Blessings to you and your family and to everyone in your family and your community. Remember to give yourselves grace.
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Take care. All right, Ryan. Wipe the eye.
Listen, I was able to just bring it back.
Well, that's fantastic. And again, there's a website, everyone, driventosucceed.ca. Great conversation. And we could have went 4 hours easily.
Yeah,
we didn't really hours there.
Go deep into like his lawyer days and
we didn't even touch any of that. We didn't even touch any of that stuff, folks. Well, look, we want to do a few things. First, I want to thank everyone who caught this live. There were a pile of you, so we want to just shout you out. Want to shout out Olivia Fung, Alethea, Anton James. Thank you, Anton, for stopping by. Of course, Christopher. There's a gentleman here, Klaus Derisma.
Hey, shout out.
Yeah, so he said, Ryan says, Ryan keeps on sending me links. So Ryan was putting the headlock on him to come and finally watch a show. Anton says, great show, guys.
Love that.
Christopher saying, great show, Dr. Vibe and Ryan. So what's up for the weekend, sir?
So we are in the midst of our next ACBN business grant. So we're giving away $500. Hey, if you know a Black-owned business in Ontario that could use a boost this October, well, it would be this Monday, because on Monday we are going to announce the winner. So you do have to be watching live when we draw the name. So when you sign up, you have to be watching the Morning Vibe to be able to claim your $500. And I remember when we did it last time during the Legacy Symposium, I got calls after with people we called their name and they weren't present. So don't miss the draw. Like I don't know how else to say it.
When are we announcing this? Monday?
Right, about 10 o'clock. So
okay, 10 o'clock on Monday.
Yes.
People can make it available. And what's up for your weekend?
It's pretty relaxed. Yeah, we're gonna do a bit of training. I know Nathan. We're gonna get him all greened up. Oh yeah,
onboarded.
Yes, onboarded for the DK. The shirt's right here. So yeah, looking forward to that. And yeah, Sunday it's raining all weekend too. So we might.
Yeah, it looks like it sounds like it's gonna be rainy. But we've had really great weather for October for the last 2 weeks or so. That's good. Fantastic.
And for yourself, sir, what's up? What's happening?
What's up? I know I have a state of things to do tomorrow night. There's some stuff I have to work on for Ryan this weekend.
Cool.
Just want to get that and there's some other things that we're working on. We'll be relaxing and doing some catching up on some reading, and yeah, that's some but Monday, we have another special guest coming up on Monday.
Yes.
Neolo Charles. He's the founder of the Black Environmental Initiative. It's an organization that promotes the environmental engagement and protection of Black and Brown communities. He advocates for more diversity in the environmental sector, and he specifically works with BIPOC communities. And he's also the founder of the Canadian Coalition for Environmental and Climate Justice. So we're going to be talking about climate initiatives and climate justice. And this is on behalf of, there's a program by Nature Canada and Parks Canada called Work to Grow, which they're actively recruiting young people, BIPOC individuals, to work in these sectors, volunteer stuff, some paid stuff, job stuff. So we're going to get some more information on that on Monday. So we have another special guest coming up on Monday, and it'll be totally new. We're going to talk about Blacks in the environment, which doesn't get talked about a lot.
Very true. Hey, looking forward to that.
So that is what's coming up, folks. Hope you have an outstanding weekend. As always, we like to say, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. And again, if you have any suggestions for guests, or if you would like to be on with us, please contact us. Please. We're starting to really we're starting to amplify there. Like Deputy Steve really laid it down today, but we know we want everyone to have a chance to share their story. That's really what we want to do. Because as Ryan was saying earlier on, when you write a book, it lives on legacy-wise. Well, I've done over 3,000 of these conversations. So unless I get shut down, they're going to carry on past my time. So we want to give a safe, embrace space for especially people of color, not people of color, Black people. Let's say Black people, people of color thing. Black people to share their stories. Yes. All right. God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith. Remember, live your life as a dream. If you can dream, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And remember to give yourselves grace. Peace.
See you.